Hey, before we start, this one's quiet. Until it isn't. Stick with me to the end and hit subscribe for more stories like this. I didn't walk into that office thinking I'd win. I just wanted it over. After 32 years of marriage and nearly 2 years of paperwork, I was done. My ex-wife Sela got the house, the art, the furniture. I got the gut punch of signing my name while my bank account bled out. Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I was 58. A compliance coordinator. Nothing flashy. I'd been staying in a small rental off Osprey Hollow in Tampa, barely unpacked, still half living out of boxes. That morning, I wore a shirt with a coffee stain and didn't notice until I sat down. That's how fried I was. Maren Bledsoe, my attorney, didn't waste time. She slid the final draft across the table and said, "Thayer, do not take the one-time payout." No soft voice, no sales pitch. Just a flat sentence like she was reading from a warning label. The offer was clean. Sela wanted to cut a check, get my signature, and erase me like whiteout. It looked generous, especially to a man who'd just spent a year renting folding chairs instead of buying them. But Maren leaned in, tapped the alternate clause. Take the equity slices. They're offering shares in 3 real estate bundles, managed rentals. You don't walk away with cash, but you walk away holding something they didn't want you to notice. I stared at the addresses on the page. My eyes hit Osprey Hollow Lane and locked. Wait, that's my street. Maren didn't flinch. One of the properties in the bundle is your rental. You technically own a slice of your own landlord. It didn't feel real. Why would they offer this instead of money? Because it's buried in legal language, and because you look tired. She was right. She pointed to the voting rights clause. They think you'll never use this, but it gives you access to meetings, distributions, leverage. You stop being background noise and start being someone who gets CC'd on decisions. I asked if I could sell later. She nodded. You can, but for once, maybe you don't run for the exit. Maybe you plant a flag. I signed. I didn't do it because I felt brave. I did it because I was too empty to keep fighting. 3 weeks later, divorce finalized. Salah walked out clean. I walked out with a copy of documents that didn't feel like much, until I looked again. On the drive home, I kept thinking about those addresses like they were keys I hadn't figured out how to use. Let her think she won. Let them all think I'd roll over and vanish. That's what made their mistake so easy to spot. A few days after the ink dried, the first investor email hit my inbox like a bank statement I didn't remember opening. It had my login credentials, a note about bundle performance, and a welcome that read like it had been written by a bot. When I signed in and saw the rental portfolios laid out, there it was, Palmetto Ridge, listed with the others, my own address nested inside like a footnote. It hit me in a strange way, seeing both sides of the transaction. I was paying rent, sure, but now part of it looped back to me. A fraction. Nothing life-changing, but it was something that didn't require me to beg, and that counted. I started showing up to the investor update meetings, not in a suit, not trying to make a point. I just needed the structure. Something regular. Something clean. That's when I saw her, Darlene Navarro, community manager, late 50s, gray streak in her hair like a lightning bolt. She had that look of someone who'd been left holding the bag too many times and stopped pretending to enjoy it. She didn't smile much, didn't play social games, but when she spoke, people paid attention, mostly because she made it clear she'd already seen every trick. That same week, I met Briar Holt while checking the mailbox. She walked up with a stack of mail, glanced at my nameplate, and said, "You're the new Quill on the Lane, right? Welcome. Don't use Southern Gulf for trash pickup. They miss more than they show." Her voice was steady, like the kind you'd trust during a power outage. She didn't hang around to chat, just handed me a flyer for the next yard sale event and moved on. The sale was a month later. Folding tables, coffee and paper cups, old baby swings, and mismatched mugs out on display. That's where I met Tova. She was 36, lived 2 doors down, and wore confidence like perfume. You didn't smell it until she was close, and then it stuck. She asked what I did. I told her contracts and compliance. She laughed and said, "So you're the guy who ruins people's fun." I said, "Only if they're breaking rules they agreed to." She waved it off like that made me adorable. Some of these rules are ridiculous anyway. Guest parking? Really? We started walking together, early evenings, coffee runs, nothing dramatic. She didn't pry, didn't ask for my whole divorce story. I appreciated that. It made space to breathe. I started noticing things. Music late at night from her garage. Too many cars stacked near her curb. Lights on at hours where nothing productive happens. But I let it pass. Tamsin, my sister, met her once during a walk. She waited until Tova walked away and said, "Charming. Just don't confuse charming with safe." I didn't answer her then. I just watched Tova disappear into her driveway like she belonged to the place more than anyone else. A few nights later, Tova texted me, "Coffee tomorrow?" I stared at it longer than I should have, then typed, "Sure. 8 work?" and hit send before I could talk myself out of it. We hit a rhythm that looked stable from the outside. Dinner 3 nights a week, errands together on Saturdays, the occasional cookout where I grilled and she told stories that made people laugh too hard. Her toothbrush lived in my bathroom. Her name came up in neighbor conversations like we were a package deal. But it shifted slowly, too slow to catch all at once. First, it was little comments about people she worked with. "He's got that hunger, you know," she said about some guy. "You can just tell he's going places." At first, I thought nothing of it. Then I realized she wasn't describing him. She was measuring me. The guy was Cyrus Lark. I heard his name before I saw his face. Creative type, late 30s, into branded events and video campaigns. Always filming something, always chasing some shiny new hustle. Tova said he had energy and said it like it was currency, like I was broke. Around the same time, Salah reappeared. Not in person, but with that same cold efficiency she always used when something mattered to her. She called under the guise of investor check-in, asking if I'd logged into the portal lately and whether I'd be attending any quarterly meetings. Then came the real message. "You know how oversight hates surprises. My people like things smooth." She said it casually, like talking about weather, but the warning sat right underneath. "Don't cause waves. Stay in your lane." Meanwhile, Tova started slipping sideways. She'd cancel coffee last minute, then post selfies from some rooftop bar. Show up to dinner distracted, texting under the table. When I asked what was going on, she hit me with, "You're reading into it." I'd heard that before. Different voice, same meaning. "You're the problem for noticing." 6 weeks after Cyrus became part of every other sentence, she ended it in the driveway. She didn't even step out of the car. Hands on the wheel, engine running. I need someone with more ambition, someone who matches my energy. I stood there like an idiot in my own driveway while she dumped me like expired yogurt. I asked, "Are you already seeing him?" She didn't say yes or no, just smiled like she was posing for a camera that wasn't there. Later that night, I took out the trash. Briar was already at the curb with her bin. She didn't ask directly, just said, "You good?" I said, "Yeah." That automatic kind of lie men use when the real answer would take too long. She paused, then said, "People see more than you think. People notice patterns." After that, I started seeing it all differently. The parties in her garage weren't lively. They were disruptive. The parked cars weren't quirky. They were inconsiderate. The patio lights she installed without approval didn't look charming anymore. They looked entitled. I didn't argue. I didn't escalate. I watched, and I wrote things down, the way I would with a contract clause that sounds harmless until it costs somebody real money. I was outside rinsing trash bins when I heard it, bass thumping, tires crunching against curb like they owned it. It was just past 9 in the morning. I had one hand on the hose, the other wiping sweat with an old towel, when the car pulled up fast and too close. Tova stepped out like it was a grand entrance. She wore sunglasses too big for her face and a smile meant for spectators, not people. Cyrus came around from the passenger side, already holding his phone like he was filming something worth archiving. She didn't ease into the scene. She charged it, walked straight toward my driveway like we'd agreed to meet, waving to neighbors on the way like she was doing a press tour. "Good morning, Palmetto Ridge," she called out, loud and fake cheerful. Then she turned toward me and said, "I upgraded, big time, and I don't regret it." She made sure Cyrus was angled just right, arm looped with his, backdrop set, my face in the shot. It wasn't just for me, it was theater. For her followers, maybe, for the neighbors. I glanced around. Briar stood by the mailbox pavilion with a to-go cup in one hand and her dog's leash in the other. 2 houses down, some guy froze mid-spray with his garden hose. People weren't chatting anymore. They were waiting for something to explode. I could have said 10 things, could have called out the way she used people like props, the way she twisted every scene into a monologue. But I didn't. I thought about every hearing, every deposition, every moment in front of a judge where my silence had been my only advantage. I remembered Marin's voice, sharp and cold. Calm faces win long games. So I raised my hand and gave her a small, polite wave. Not sarcastic, not smug. Just a wave, like I barely registered the interruption. Her smile wobbled. Just for a second. Cyrus blinked like he wasn't sure if he should keep filming or cut. She tried again, louder. "We've got momentum now, don't we, babe?" she said to Cyrus. No more dead weight. Nothing in my posture changed. I stood with the towel in one hand, hose still trickling onto the driveway. The moment sagged. Cyrus looked down at his phone. Tova glanced toward Briar, maybe hoping for backup. None came. They didn't linger. She hit stop on the recording. Briar told me later she hissed something at him right after and climbed back into the car like she'd dropped off a package. As they drove off, I saw a few heads turn back to their morning routines. Lawn watering resumed. A scooter zipped past. Conversations picked back up, quieter now. I coiled the hose, wiped my hands, and went back inside. Not because I was shaken, because the scene was over. Let her post it. The only thing that mattered was what I didn't give her, a reaction. 2 mornings after the curb stunt, I opened my front door and found an envelope slid under the frame. No stamp, no return address. Just my name, written in that neat, squared-off handwriting that said someone cared about rules even when the world didn't. Inside was a short note on Palmetto Ridge letterhead. Investor compliance review. Please come by. Bring portal credentials. Window, Tuesday noon to 3. No fluff, no emotion, just procedure with a pulse. I showed up that afternoon in work clothes, no appointment. Darlene didn't meet me at the front. Her assistant did. A woman named Imani Greer, early 40s, wire-framed glasses, and the kind of posture that tells you she files everything. She asked my name, cross-checked the investor list, and gave one nod that said, "You belong here now." She led me to a small, windowless conference room and explained the basics. Some materials are redacted for privacy, some notes are internal. But as an equity participant, you're cleared to view compliance status. Nothing gossipy in her tone. No sideways looks. It felt like onboarding for a job I didn't realize I already had. Darlene walked in, holding a thick manila file. She didn't pass it to me. She placed it on the table, flipped it open, and turned it so I could read upside down. Photos, logs, timestamps, written statements, all tied to one property: Tova's, noise complaints, improper guest parking, unauthorized exterior changes, a grill setup positioned too close to the side wall. The last entry was dated 4 days ago and involved a power cord stretched from the garage to a makeshift tent canopy in the backyard. On top of it all, one sticky note in sharp black ink. Been building this for a long time. You have a vote now. Darlene. That's when I realized this wasn't pettiness. This wasn't personal. This was leverage made of paper and time. Darlene sat down across from me. Corporate doesn't like mess. They like renewal rates and low turnover. As long as rent comes in, they coach problem residents instead of removing them. It's cheaper. I asked why now. Why me? She didn't flinch. You're the first investor I've met here who won't fold when someone gets loud. I don't need sympathy. I need legitimacy. That night I pulled out my laptop and started writing. Not rants, not threats. Structure, policy drafts, quiet hours and guest car rules, strike systems with warnings, inspection windows, fines, nothing dramatic, just legally boring stuff that holds up under scrutiny. Then came the surprise. Imani sent a follow-up note and accidentally copied me on an internal chain. At the top was Sela's name. She wasn't managing anything directly, but she had ties to the oversight team, enough pull to nudge them when things didn't stay smooth. I called Marin, told her what I saw. She didn't sound shocked. Your ex plays from the shadows. That's where she's most comfortable. You don't chase her. You build something she can't argue with. So I did. Not revenge files. Just records. Visible trash overflow. Blocked hydrants. Music past quiet hours. Things any neighbor could see. I logged them all. The meeting was set for Thursday. Tuesday had only been a compliance intake window. Thursday was the investor meeting where the vote would happen. Tova's stunt had been Saturday. I didn't plan the lineup. I just made sure every piece stood where it should. The investor meeting was held in a beige conference room that smelled like old carpet and burnt coffee. There were no pastries, no catered nonsense, just a folding table with off-brand creamer and 2 working pens. Hollis and Leona Carver sat across from each other like co-captains. Late 60s, buttoned up, the kind of couple that probably used spreadsheets to split groceries. Jay and Min Park came in with folders already color-coded. They each carried a calculator, and Min kept clicking his, like he wanted someone to ask him what it was for. Darlene opened the meeting with a tone that was all business. Resident churn's ticking upward. Noise complaints are up 22%. Maintenance costs spiked last quarter. 3 repeat addresses are eating nearly half the budget. She didn't name names. She didn't have to. Everyone at that table understood code. Repeat offenders meant somebody's pet project was costing real money. There was a pause, then some murmuring. Hollis leaned in. We're not in this to manage chaos. Occupancy is only good if it's stable. That's when I spoke. Calm. Even. I'm Thayer Quill. I'm the newest investor on Palmetto Ridge. I've been reviewing the compliance data, and it's clear we have a consistency problem, not a resident problem, a policy enforcement problem. I passed around 1 sheet per person, no stapled packets, no fluff, just bullet points. Quiet hours enforcement with a strike structure, guest parking permits and time windows. Exterior modifications require documented approval, scheduled inspections once per quarter, fines only after warnings. Everything is step-based, tracked, and public to the board. Leona read the page like a grocery list. Jay nodded twice. Min finally asked what I expected him to. Can this be enforced without exposing us to targeting complaints? I said, yes, it's designed for that. Everyone gets the same process, the same escalation path. No special treatment, no guessing. Hollis let out a short breath, then said, people pay for peace. Peace is an asset. The room went quiet. That was it. That's all it took. A phrase that sounded like profit. Darlene stepped in. If the group approves this structure, I can implement immediately. Corporate can't override an investor-approved compliance standard without documented justification. No arguing, no posturing. The vote was unanimous, just hands raised and a legal marker dropped. Darlene picked up the file that used to be complaints and closed it with one hand. Then, as of this vote, we shift from coaching to enforcement. Step 1 begins on the next violation logged. After the meeting, I barely made it out of the parking lot before my phone rang. Selah. First time in months. Her voice was soft, overly measured. I heard you're getting involved now. Just be careful not to let personal feelings drive business decisions. Then came the edge, hidden in concern. If I feel enforcement standards are creating risk for our circle, I may have to ask corporate to take a closer look. Just to slow things down, protect everyone. I kept my tone flat. That won't be necessary. Everything I've done reduces risk. It's equal, it's written, and it's transparent. She paused, then hung up. Driving home, I thought about the playbook. Salah and Tova both ran the same script. Make it emotional, bait the reaction, call the man unstable. They didn't get it. I wasn't reacting. I was writing policy. Saturday came again, exactly 7 days after the driveway stunt. I didn't plan anything. But Tova was predictable. By Friday night, her garage was glowing blue from party lights, and bass was rolling down the lane like a slow leak. She had music up, garage door open, cars packed tight against curbs like it was a concert lot. I waited until 10:45, then called the non-emergency line. Calm voice, clear details, no adjectives, just like Marin told me. Make it boring, make it real. I didn't mention her name, didn't say anything about history. I gave the address, the decibel level, and the time. The system did the rest. The next morning I got a text from Imani. No small talk, no emoji, just, report logged. Compliance step 1 will be issued per new policy. Later, she added something that mattered more than she probably knew. 2 other addresses had reported the same noise violation that night, not linked, not prompted. Just fed-up neighbors finally stepping forward. By 8 in the morning, the investor portal updated. A single new entry appeared under violations. Quiet hours, step 1 issued, notice posted. I didn't need to go outside to see it. I knew what it said. The point wasn't watching her get written up. The point was this: the policies worked. By noon, the blowback started. Tova told one neighbor I was obsessed with her. She told another that I was using my investor vote to punish women who leave. Then she filed a formal complaint with the management office claiming harassment and retaliation. Imani called me in, but not like I was in trouble, just to document and respond. She slid a copy of Tova's complaint across the desk. You don't need to defend anything verbally, she said. Just confirm your timeline. I handed over my printouts, the vote date, the policy draft, the portal logs, the timestamp on the call I placed. Darlene joined us and reviewed everything without flinching. She's used to being unregulated, she said, but that's not the same thing as being targeted. The footage helped. Palmetto Ridge had cameras at both entrances and at the mailbox pavilion, wide angle, date-stamped, audio-free. Darlene didn't need to show me the clips. She confirmed internally that the patterns lined up. Guest overflow after 10 p.m., music triggering multiple neighbor reports, same addresses flagged repeatedly. She forwarded a report to corporate, simple language, enforcement consistent with investor-approved compliance policy, multiple independent sources. By Tuesday, a second violation landed, this one from a routine exterior inspection. Tova had built a half-covered lounge area in her backyard, complete with power cords run from the garage, unapproved. Unsafe. The inspector flagged it. She got a deadline for correction and a warning fine if she ignored it. Then Cyrus's car tipped the third domino. He parked in guest overflow overnight without a permit. Under the new rules, that meant one warning, then a tow. At 6:20 in the morning, I heard the beep of the tow truck reversing. A minute later, Cyrus's voice cracked across the street, yelling into his phone like someone had stolen a piece of his manhood. That afternoon, Tova posted in the community thread something about harassment, vindictive men, and abuse of power. She never used my name, but everyone knew. The comments came in slow and cold. Not my experience. Sorry you're dealing with that. Hope it gets resolved. Nobody rallied, nobody jumped in to defend her. She didn't realize the lane had already shifted, and she still didn't know why. Cyrus didn't storm out. He didn't slam a door or break a lawn chair. What he did was stand in the guest parking area, staring at the orange tow warning tag stuck to the curb like it was a bill he couldn't charm his way out of. He didn't say anything. He just looked tired. The next time I saw him, the usual jokes were gone. The easy confidence, the way he used to swing his car door open like it belonged anywhere, it vanished. The policy wasn't just words anymore. It had cost him money, and he knew it. Tova wasn't far behind. Her third violation landed after another late-night garage gathering. I didn't report that one. I didn't have to. A neighbor farther down the lane made the call. Darlene logged it, followed procedure, and issued the next notice. That one mattered more than the others. It knocked the legs out from under her whole story, that I was out for revenge. When the complaints come from all angles, it stops sounding like drama and starts looking like data. Right after that, Darlene sent a neighborhood-wide policy reminder. The email was clean and professional, no names, no shade, just bullet points about quiet hours, guest permits, inspection rules, and fines. It looked neutral, but it cut like a scalpel. Tova came back swinging. She didn't argue the notice directly. Instead, she went for something bigger. She claimed I was stalking her, that I was abusing my investor status to punish her. She told the office. She told a few neighbors. She might have told Cyrus. Didn't matter. Darlene didn't entertain it. She told Tova, plainly, to put everything in writing. No more hallway drama. No more vague threats. Just documents or silence. Then she logged the whole thing as an unsubstantiated complaint and attached it to the enforcement timeline. Imani handled the paperwork like a machine. She tracked timestamps, violations, which neighbor reported what, and when. If Tova ever tried to take it up the chain or throw legal smoke, the file would read like a spreadsheet of bad decisions. That same night, I heard Tova and Cyrus arguing in the driveway. Her voice was sharp, his louder. I didn't look out the window. I'm not a voyeur, but I heard enough through the walls to know it wasn't about music or cars. It was about blame. The next morning, I saw him loading equipment cases into his trunk. Camera gear, cables, a rolling bag. His expression didn't say gig, it said exit. A week later, the community portal updated again. Guest access revoked. Repeat misuse of overflow privileges. It looked small on screen, but in Palmetto Ridge, that was a big red flag. You lose those permissions, you stop being invisible. Every extra guest, every extra noise, it all gets noticed. Tova watched him go. I watched her watch him. She stood in the garage holding her phone out in front of her, filming herself for some story about being targeted by small-town minds. Cyrus didn't turn around. By the end of that week, the street felt different, calmer, lighter, not silent, just clean. Neighbors who'd kept their heads down started greeting Darlene again. A few people nodded when they passed me. Not friendly, not fake, just something like respect. And then Sela tried again. Her people sent Marin an email offering to buy out my shares for a fast lump sum. No questions, no negotiation. It was the same offer from the divorce, dressed in new clothes. Marin didn't flinch. She replied, Thayer is exercising investor rights in accordance with policy. If your clients wish to purchase his equity, they may present a fair market offer through official channels. Enforcement is neutral and community-wide. That was it. No extra oxygen, just clean process, the same way I'd always been told to do it, and the same way nobody expected me to. Darlene called me into the office again, but this time it wasn't about violations. It was procedural, something she needed to disclose. She didn't smile when I walked in. She just tapped a folder and said, "This came through official request. Turns out Tova's parents had been co-signers on her lease, not publicly listed, but flagged in the system as financial backstops. They weren't the flashy type, just steady contributors behind the scenes. Rent gaps, utilities, smoothing out card statements, quiet money that made her lifestyle look self-funded. But after the third compliance notice, they reached out. Tova told them the neighborhood was overreacting and that the office was being weaponized by a bitter ex. That might have worked if they hadn't asked for the full record. Darlene gave it to them. She had to. Guarantors have legal access in specific situations. My name wasn't in it. Neither were my calls. The file spoke for itself. Complaint dates, photos, inspector logs, multiple neighbors, repeat infractions. It wasn't an argument. It was a pattern. 2 days later, I saw Tova in the driveway with her phone pressed to her ear, pacing in tight circles. Her face went pale, then red. I didn't need audio to follow it. That call wasn't about brunch plans. That was the cushion collapsing. A month after Cyrus moved out, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. Then a call. It was him. He said he got my number from the neighborhood group thread. His voice was tight, like he was trying not to sound embarrassed. She borrowed $3,800 from me, he said. Said it was for an event deposit. Swore she'd pay me back in 2 weeks. I didn't say anything, just waited. She blocked me. No refund. She's still posting about hosting high-end tastings like none of it happened. I feel like an idiot, but it doesn't feel like I'm the first one. He was right. I told him, keep everything, screenshots, texts, bank transfers. If she made a promise, document it. Then I gave him Marin's office number and said, ask about small claims and access to the compliance file. A week later, Marin called me. Her voice was sharper than usual. Cyrus wasn't alone. 2 other men, almost the same story, just low enough amounts that most people write it off instead of filing. But together, it's a pattern, and patterns are what courts understand. The filings went public. I didn't go to court. I didn't need the theater, but the outcome mattered. Credit history, lease risk, background checks. Those things live longer than Instagram stories. Word got around that Tova was planning to leave Palmetto Ridge. I didn't throw a party. I didn't gloat. I just stood outside later that day and noticed how the air felt different. Like a speaker had been shut off somewhere nearby, and you didn't realize how loud it had been until it stopped. By late fall, the whole street changed. Not overnight, not like flipping a switch, but you could feel it. The mailbox pavilion stopped being a stage. The curb stopped being a battlefield. People still had parties, still had visitors, still played music, but the tone shifted. The idea that rules were optional had finally died. At the next quarterly investor meeting, Darlene showed the numbers. Complaint volume cut in half. Renewals up. Maintenance calls lower by almost a third, especially the ones tied to careless damage. She didn't brag. She just read it straight, like the math did the talking. Hollis Carver leaned back in his chair and said, order increases value. Jay Park didn't even blink before nodding. Exactly. That's what I've been saying. Afterward, Darlene pulled me aside near the copier. Her voice was low, calm. The real win wasn't getting one person out, she said. It's that the system finally has a spine. Corporate stopped telling me to smooth things over, because now I've got policy to stand on, and investor backing to match. Breyer started calling the block sleepable again. She said it like a joke, but it landed real. People walked after dark without that edge in their posture, like they weren't bracing for someone's party to spill across their lawn. A few days later, I got a text from Cyrus. Short and straight, he said, you handled it like a grown man. I didn't know that was an option until I watched you not react. That's all. Not praise. Just honesty from someone who'd learned the hard way. Sela tried reaching out again around Christmas. She wanted to play civil now that the drama was over. I kept it short. I wasn't stepping back into her fog. I'd stopped chasing peace and started building it. I used a chunk of my distributions to set up a small emergency fund. Not flashy, just stable. I also signed up for a class Marin suggested, property law basics. Not because I wanted to be a landlord, because I didn't want to be the only one in the room who didn't understand how things really work. I saw Tova one last time on her moving day, rental truck in the driveway, 2 helpers that looked like they were working off favors. She stood with her arms folded across her chest, chin high like she was calling the shots. She didn't look at me. I didn't wave. I just kept walking. I won't pretend I never wanted payback. I did. But what stuck with me wasn't the satisfaction of watching her lose. It was the quiet afterward. Darlene doing her job without resistance. Neighbors relaxing, me holding steady when someone tried to humiliate me on camera. If you'd asked me right after the divorce what I wanted, I would have said peace. But peace doesn't show up when you ask. You build it with rules, with paper, and without giving anyone the show they came to film. One last question before you go. What would you do? Tap hype, subscribe and like. One click helps. Then comment, good story, or answer, calm paperwork, or loud revenge when provoked.